Good afternoon, Rich.
Good afternoon, Peter.
I'll do a full disclosure at the beginning of this conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the really interesting work that you're doing at the school at the moment in Osgoode. But full disclosure, we are friends. Our friendship goes back a long way. We play in the same band together, the Lads, and you are a remarkable singer and a mouth organ player and band leader. Rich, you're doing some really interesting stuff at Osgoode. Well, you've always done interesting things throughout your career. This one's caught my attention. Can you give us a glimpse into this journey that you're on, Rich?
So as I had mentioned to you previously, Peter, last summer, I took advantage of the time off to read your latest book and was quite impressed by a number of the concepts and some of the stories that you shared within that book. So I kind of used that as the ideas within that are something I wanted to explore further in the school. So I put the word out to staff about forming a book club. So we had a book club of approximately 8 or 9 staff members that were interested in participating. And we managed to recruit a student as well who was eager to participate. So we met every 2 or 3 weeks to discuss 2 or 3 chapters at a time. And throughout semester 1, we explored some of the concepts and discussed those concepts. But just as importantly, we discussed how we might implement some of those concepts into what we do on a daily basis in school. So rather than just pay lip service to the ideas, trying to figure out meaningful and concrete ways that we can implement that. And fortunately, at the end of our book club, we were fortunate enough to have you join us for a debriefing along with one of your subjects, Rebecca Chambers. And it was great to be able to discuss it further and try and operationalize the ideas, because everyone within the book club believed that the concepts that they had read about and that we had discussed were meaningful in a way that would be able to engage a larger number of students in the school.
So, Rich, it came to the surface in some of the things that you've written and talked about that one of the catalysts for this is that you believe the education system doesn't necessarily serve all kids as well as it could. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So it's difficult for educators from time to time to get a have a full sense of the way students approach school, because most of us within the education system are success stories of the system. But we have, a small percentage of students who really engage in the way we do things on a daily basis. They're extremely high achievers. They're completely engaged on every level. At the other end of the spectrum, we have students that are completely disengaged, that really don't want to be in school and struggle to be here and to be successful. And then in the middle, we have what I believe to be a large section of students that fall somewhere between the two. They're, they may be passionate about this or that, or, a sport or a particular subject area, but they're all very good at playing the game of school. They do what they need to do to achieve the marks. And unfortunately, in some cases, the mark is the ultimate goal rather than the learning. So we were trying to, figure out ways, how can we better engage students in meaningful ways that make it about the learning rather than the mark?
Rich, I know we're going to talk a little bit in more specificity about what you're doing now, but I'm intrigued to know where this comes from. I mean, is this something that's presented itself throughout your career, or has it crystallized more as you get towards the later stages of your career?
I think it has morphed significantly. I've been an administrator for about 15 years, and the way I did things in my classroom when I left the classroom compared to the way I would do them now are radically different. I think that, it was very strict, might not be the right word, but very regimented, very by the book, very traditional when I left the classroom. And I think now if I went back, it would be significantly different, because I recognize students do have various learning styles. And it stems back as far as my experience in high school.
Oh, really?
I was an artist and a musician. So arts and music were paramount for me. Phys ed was very important to me. I did enjoy the hands-on courses like wood shop and auto shop. And I did okay on the rest of the subjects. I wasn't especially passionate about the other subjects I was exposed to, with a pretty strong dislike for math and science, to be honest. And, a lot of the stuff I did at school, I did because I had to. Because that's what it took to graduate from high school. And I was a very solid B minus student when I graduated from high school. So I was passionate about, in art and music and phys ed, but that passion didn't translate across the spectrum. So I did what I had to do to graduate. So I sort of recognized that, and many of the students I see walking our hallways,
Uh,
they are passionate about certain things, and they're passionate about many things that is difficult to apply in a school in the current system. So we're trying to figure out ways as how we can tap their passions, their desires, their needs, to make them more engaged in school on a profound level.
um, it's a bold thing to do, Rich. I've, I've been witness to many, many, many different schools throughout my career. And I can tell you, I don't think I've ever seen a school principal headline a newsletter home the way you've been headlining the last couple of newsletters. Can you just give us a glimpse into, number one, what you've said to the community, and number two, why?
Well, I've shared a great deal of what I've just shared with you in terms of, how do we, asking the questions, how do we better serve the needs of all of our students? How do we serve the needs of our most vulnerable students? And when Rebecca and I worked together at John McCrae, there was example after example of students in her class that were not successful in the traditional sense in other classrooms
Yeah.
that thrived in the environment that she had created.
Yes.
And so we wanted to provide an environment in which those students can thrive, can build on their strengths, can experience success, and experience success in a meaningful way that matters to them. I think a lot of, we have students, and rightfully so, we have students when they're given a task in school, either ask themselves or ask the teacher, why am I doing this?
Yes.
And there often isn't a very good answer. Because I say so is not an answer.
No.
Why are we doing this? How does this apply to my life? And how am I going to use this in school and beyond school? And I don't think we always have the greatest answers for those questions, but I think we need to. So how do we tailor the system? And I'm saying we're going to stay within the existing system. We're not turning it on its head.
No.
But how do we tailor it in a way that better supports all of our students and better engages them on a meaningful level?
A lot of school leaders, school principals, they walk away from this type of approach, and I put it down to fear. Why that's the case, I have no idea. And I think more would do it if that fear wasn't there. What you're doing is unusual. What would your advice be to other leaders, Rich, in terms of taking that plunge into the uncertainty?
Ultimately, Peter, it's about focusing on the students and focusing on their needs. So if you keep them at the center of every decision you're making, I think you can't go wrong. So if we're trying to plan and design things to support them, first of all, we want to involve them in that planning. And then we want to make sure that the way we're doing things engages them. What steps can we take to engage the student that hasn't been engaged? And I think as long as we sort of have that at the core of what we're doing, it can be done in many different ways. And that's the current process that we're on. We're sort of evaluating where students are at and formulating where we're going to go forward to support as many students as we possibly can.
I think that's an absolutely amazing place to pause this conversation. And I say pause because, Rich, I got a feeling we're going to be having quite a few more into the future. Congratulations on what you're doing. And you know that whatever I can do to help, I'm going to be right there. Thanks, Rich.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Peter.